Hey there. Welcome to Mike's Collection, episode 318. I'm Mike, and the part of my collection that I'm going to be talking about today are kind of a mixed bag, just some random stuff that I have laying around that I've got in the last couple of weeks that I want to show you guys. Now, I might sound a little hoarse. I've been pretty sick the last few days. Um, and yeah, I probably should just be in bed reading comic books, but I've just got so many toys. My room is a bit of a mess right now. You guys can't really tell, but all the fringes everywhere around me. I've got boxes on the floor, things everywhere. And my room gets like that when I have a lot of toys that I have yet to review because I don't like to put anything away on my shelves until I've reviewed it for you guys. So I have a couple of like G.I. Joes that I need to talk about, but I'm waiting for my co-host Chad to join me again, and we're going to do a G.I. Joe episode. I've got some DC Superpowers. I've got some Masters of the Universe. What else have I got? I got some reaction figures. But all that stuff, I'm going to do full videos on those full collections, all the new stuff I've acquired. But I do have a couple kind of odds and ends that don't really fit anywhere else. And I just thought I should do a video, show you these so I can get them out of the way and start tidying up this room a little bit. So, yeah, so that's what we're doing. Miscellaneous episode. So let's start with this first one. This is a McFarlane DC Multiverse figure. Now, I don't buy a lot of these. If you watch regularly, you know I have a handful of them, but my co-host Chad, he's much more into this line, especially Batman. He has a ton of different variations of Batman. I usually just buy some of my favorite characters, maybe looks that they haven't had figures of before, because I already built a pretty big DC collection back when DC Direct was making the figures, and I just don't really feel the need to buy all these characters again. Even though I do like a lot of what McFarlane's doing, I also don't like a lot of what McFarlane is doing. But what are you gonna do? So anyway, this is one of McFarlane's toys that I thought was interesting. It's kind of a weird one. It's the kind of thing I probably shouldn't be buying because I made a kind of a New Year's resolution to myself this year to buy fewer toys in 2024 than I bought the last couple of years, because I've been buying a lot of toys. Like we're over 300, almost 400. Like it's bordering on a toy a day, is what it breaks down to. And that's just too much. I can't keep up with it financially. I don't have the space. So I made a vow this year that I'm going to keep collecting the lines that I collect. Marvel Legends, G.I. Joe Classified, Transformers, Masters of the Universe Origins. But I'm going to stop buying random stuff. But this definitely falls into that category of random stuff. So this is a Batman figure. This is a GameStop exclusive. You'll see here it says the Frostbite Edition. It's got this really cool kind of box with this semi-translucent sleeve over top of the box. Get some cool artwork on the back. Yeah, so cool little box. But then once you slide this sleeve off, then it's just this translucent blue box. You can see I've already opened the figure. It came with a comic book that I don't have much use for because it's just some random reprint. But here's the figure. This is Frostbite Batman. And as you can tell, he is Batman, but he's supposed to be frozen in ice, as if Mr. Freeze had got to him and blasted him with his freeze ray or something. Now, the figure is cast in a translucent blue, which is not uncommon. I have lots of translucent figures in my collection. But this guy also has kind of this white wash over top that really makes it look like it's frozen. It's an effect I have not seen before. Like I have Iceman figures and other ice characters. Nobody has come across this effectively. So yeah, I think this guy is really cool. And it's based off of like a previous Batman figure they released that I don't have. So it's a new sculpt for me. Even his accessories are frostbitten, I guess we'll say. So he's got his little grappling gun. He also has a batarang. Now, it's kind of a bummer that he can't hold on to both of them because one of his hands is a closed fist and the other one is slightly open. So you can either display him with his batarang or with his grappling gun. Yeah, but he also comes with a display base, which is kind of ridiculously oversized. It takes up a lot of room on the shelf. Usually I prefer just a small circular base for my action figures. He also comes with this useless piece of garbage. Again, it's cool because it's done in that same icy plastic where it's translucent blue with a white wash. But all McFarlane figures come with a card, and I've been throwing these cards out. But now he puts this little display stand with the card. So I guess that's great if you want to display your figures with a little card behind them. It doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. I don't have the space for that. So yeah, I don't know what I'm going to do with this. But anyway, that doesn't really matter. I bought it for the figure. I just thought he was really cool looking, really unique. And again, totally random, not the kind of thing that I needed in my collection because it's not like I have any shortage of Batmans in my collection, but I don't have any frostbitten figures. So that's what makes this a must-have as far as I'm concerned. And yeah, just really cool. I won't get into all the articulation. Again, I'm not going to go into as much detail as I maybe normally do, partly because my throat is sore and I'm eager to just go upstairs and read my new comic books. But yeah, he's cool. I like this guy a lot. Now, these next couple of figures I'm going to show you, they also borderline on things I should not have bought if I'm trying to follow my new strict rules. Because one collection I have a whole lot of are Funko Pops. And I haven't bought very many of them in recent years. I have a collection of several hundred, but most of them were purchased years ago. I really only buy very specific figures now when it comes to Funko Pops. Like, for example, I used to buy all the G.I. Joe Funko Pops and all the Masters of the Universe Funko Pops because I love all those characters. But, you know, I already have a bunch of actual G.I. Joes and a bunch of actual He-Man figures that the Funko Pops just didn't make as much sense. So I decided to only buy Funko Pops of things like, you know, music bands that I like and, you know, certain movies that haven't got action figures like Mad Max and things like that. So those are the things I'm trying to stick to. But I broke that rule here because the new Godzilla vs. Kong movie, I liked it a lot. And I went out and I bought some of the cheap kind of figures from Playmates that are at retail right now. But I've also pre-ordered some of the high-end figures from the movie from companies like Haya and stuff, but those figures haven't arrived yet. But I decided to also buy some of those characters as Funko Pops, just because I really like my Godzilla Funko Pops. Like, this is my Godzilla Funko Pop from, I think this was from Godzilla vs. Kong, the first one. And what I like about the Godzilla Pop is that it doesn't look like a typical Funko, you know, because they normally have really big, oversized heads and no features on their face. It's just kind of eyes with no mouth. But Godzilla, it's just a nice sculpted Godzilla. And, you know, his head isn't really oversized. Well, it is because the American Godzilla from the legendary Monsterverse has a really small head. I actually think this oversized Funko head makes him look better proportioned. You can see he's got a nose, a mouth, he's got all that sculpted detail, all the scales. So he's not simplified or dumbed down like your normal Funko Pop. So yeah, I love the Godzilla Funko. This might be my favorite Funko in my whole collection out of all the hundreds I have. So when they put out a new wave of Godzilla Funkos for the new movie, I thought, I'm not going to buy the new Godzilla. I'm not going to buy the new Kong because I already have those guys. But I am going to buy the new characters. Now, I haven't bought Scar King or, what's his name? The little monkey guy? Shimo? Simu? Samu? I can't remember. Anyway, I didn't buy them yet. And I might not. The monkeys, they look more like normal Funko Pops. Their heads are big, their eyes are big and round. So they don't look particularly cool. But I really liked Shimo, the new kind of ice dragon character. So I picked up Shimo, the Funko Pop. And like Godzilla, like the scale looks really nice. Like it's not oddly proportioned with a giant head. It's got lots of nice detail. I know it's kind of hard to tell right now because he's white and the light is kind of washing out all the details. But he does have a lot of nice, or she has a lot of nice sculpted detail throughout. So maybe I'll just put in a little cutaway here. so you can see her up close with a little bit more detail. But yeah, it's a pretty cool little figure. Now it's not really to scale with my Godzillas because I think Shimo should be bigger. But anyway, it works. It's cute. So yeah, I was happy to get Shimo. And then, as I mentioned, I was not intending to buy the Godzilla because the new Godzilla, you know, he looks similar to this one. He has the pink fins now. He's got the pink atomic breath. But I just thought it's not different enough. I don't need it because I already have that little one. However, last week, a new Ghost Rider for Marvel Legends came out with the motorbike. And so I ordered that from GameStop. Now, the thing is, GameStop will ship items free to my house for any order over $75. And the Ghost Rider was about $65, so it was just shy. So they were going to charge me like $15 shipping on top of the $65. So I thought, well, I'd be better off trying to find something else on the website that I can just buy to put it over. If it's something that costs me $15, it'll work out the exact same price, and I get 2 items instead of 1. So there wasn't a whole lot that I could think of that I don't already have on pre-order, but I came across the Godzilla Funko Pops, and I didn't know that they had some supersized Funko Pops. So that made the Godzilla feel a little bit more unique. So this is my supersized Godzilla from Godzilla X Kong. So you can see just size-wise, he is bigger than the typical Funko Pop. Now, I guess I'd call him like a medium-sized Funko because when I got my first ever Godzilla Funko Pop, it was this one. And so he kind of towered above all the other Funkos in my collection. But yeah, after that, like the other Godzillas they've made have all been small little guys. For example, this one here, my wife knows how much I like this one, so she bought me another one for Christmas in this kind of like hot pink color. And he looks really cool. So I dig both of them. But I also have a couple of Godzillas that are really jumbo-sized. So now I've got Godzilla Funko Pops in 3 different scales. And, yeah. Did I need them? Probably not. But he's cool. And, this is the first... I was going to say it's the first Godzilla in my collection that represents the new pink fin look. But it's not. I bought the Playmates version. But that was only like $15. So, yeah. I'm not going broke buying these anyway. These are relatively affordable figures. And this guy is pretty cool. He's going to look good on my shelf. So, there you go. Shimo and Godzilla. Now, this next one, I don't really feel guilty about buying. Because it is from a line of figures that I do actively collect. It's not some random one-off thing. So, I have been a fan of Spawn since the very beginning. I was reading Marvel comic books back when Todd McFarlane first came on to Marvel Comics as the artist for Spider-Man and Hulk. And I was a huge fan of McFarlane as a kid. I had a big McFarlane poster up on my wall. Love him. I had a McFarlane sweatshirt. Anyway, so when Todd McFarlane left Marvel to go start Image and start doing his own creator-owned property, he started with Spawn, who was this demonic superhero. And it was great. The writing sometimes a little spotty because Todd McFarlane was writing and drawing it. And he's not necessarily the best writer, but he's gotten better over the years. Anyway, loved the Spawn comic book. And then Todd McFarlane got into making toys. And, that's really cool because I guess a couple of companies approached him saying, we want to make Spawn figures. But he couldn't get them to commit to making the figures how he wanted them. So he said, I'll just start my own toy company, which seemed crazy at the time, but he did it, and he's been very successful. And I bought the very first Spawn figure they ever made, and I still have him in my collection. So this guy is from the mid-90s, I guess. I want to say maybe like 95 or something is when he first started his toy company. And this figure here is relatively simple. He's not, like, his articulation is pretty basic. The sculpting, the painting, it's all pretty basic. But he very quickly advanced from this into making amazing figures. Now, over the years, I kind of stopped buying the comic books and the action figures. The comic books because I just really wasn't loving the direction of them, but I'd already been collecting it for about 270 issues. So several years from when I was a little kid right into adulthood. And then I started buying it again at issue 300. So I'm missing about 30 issues from my entire collection. And I've been loving it ever since issue 300 launched. It's been really good these last couple of years. And the figures I stopped buying just because he stopped making Spawn figures. He started focusing on other properties like Walking Dead and Halo or whatever. But around the time that the comic book kind of got reinvigorated with issue 300 and a couple of spin-off books, he also brought back the Spawn toy line. And he started it with a Kickstarter campaign for a redo of that original Spawn figure. And this is the Kickstarter Spawn. It's hard to get a hold of him here because he's just so big with his cape and everything. But yeah, this is an awesome figure. You got real metal chains this time instead of the little plastic ones that the original figure had. Big detailed gun. The cape is huge and it's articulated so you can move it around. Just a really amazing figure. So after he started the line again with this guy, he has since put out a couple of figures. You know, every year he's been putting out, I don't know, 5 or 6 Spawn figures, and I've been buying the majority of them, which I'm pretty pleased with the speed at which he's putting them out. If Spawn was the only line I collected, I would probably be frustrated because I'd want more toys. But considering how fast Hasbro is putting out Marvel Legends and G.I. Joe and stuff, having a toy line that is only a couple of figures a year is actually really nice. So, that brings me to this brand new figure I got. This is another version of Spawn, but this is, I think they're calling it Proto Spawn. And what this is based off of the very first sketches Todd McFarlane made of this character when he created him back in junior high. So Spawn, or Todd, was just like a teenager, or maybe even a tween, when he first designed this character. And you can see he's actually kept the design pretty close. So like this is what Spawn looked like when he launched to the public. So he still has the black and red. He still has the cape with the big collar. He's still got that kind of M design on his chest. You know, he's added some spikes and he's added some chains. And there have been a couple other changes. He added some skulls, or at the very least moved the skulls from the boots up to the cape and on the belt buckle. But anyway, I have seen these sketches before. I believe Todd McFarlane had shared these images in some of the early issues of Spawn. Maybe I saw them in a Wizard magazine somewhere. Anyway, I was aware of what this kind of Proto Spawn looked like. But I never dreamed it would be something that would get made into an action figure. But Todd McFarlane owns the company. He owns the character, so why not? And I think it is awesome that he made this. Now, maybe it's just because I'm a creative guy myself. At least I like to think so. And I have made my own comic books for as long as I can remember. Not so much in recent years, but when I was a little kid, I used to make all kinds of comic books that I would do on, just 8.5 by 11 with colored pencils. I'd staple them together. I had a whole comic book universe. Me and my older brother, we would sit at the dining room table for hours. And he had his characters, I had my characters. We'd have crossovers, so his character would appear in my comic book and vice versa. And over the years, when I've had the chance, I always kind of revisit my old characters. I made some kind of crappy versions, like action figures of my characters over the years. When I started new comic books later on in my life, a little bit more adult, like when I was a teenager, I started these kind of like black and white little zines that I used to photocopy and give out. And it wasn't really superhero comic books anymore, but I would tie characters from my old superhero books into my new kind of like coming of age books and all this sort of stuff. I love revisiting these old characters because I hate seeing them die off. And if I owned my own toy company and I could make action figures of my own original characters, even the original sketches of those characters, I would totally do that. I totally relate to that desire from Todd, and I just think he's just really, really cool. So he looks great. He's got this kind of rubbery cape. It's pliable, so you can move it around, and Yeah, his articulation is pretty standard. I think you can kind of see he's got double jointed knees, double jointed elbows. He does have pins, which I know some people don't like, but it's fine for me. This piece here is a little rubbery, so it gives him some movement so he can move his legs up and down and stuff. But anyway, it's just a really cool design. I think he's going to look great in my display case next to my other Spawns. So yeah, very, very cool. So here's a closer look at Spawn. And there was something else I wanted to mention about this guy, but I completely forgot to talk about it when I was recording earlier. This guy came in a 2-pack with an action figure of Todd McFarlane himself, the creator of Spawn. Now, even though I am a big fan of Todd McFarlane as a creator, I have a lot of respect for him. The fact that he just starts his own companies and he's succeeded and all that sort of stuff. Plus, he's a fellow Canadian, so that's pretty cool. Regardless, I did not need a Todd McFarlane action figure in my collection. That just didn't really make much sense to me. So this figure did borderline on, like an unnecessary expense, because this figure was double the price of what I would expect to pay for it, because it was 2 figures together in a package, and I only wanted one of the 2 figures. Now, fortunately, my good buddy and co-host on this show sometimes, Chad, when he saw this 2-pack, he was excited about the Todd McFarlane figure, and he had no interest in this Proto Spawn figure. So we actually went splits on the 2-pack. So he's got the Todd McFarlane, and I've got Proto Spawn, and we're both happy. And yeah, it didn't cost us any more money than it needed to. And also, you'll see here for accessories, he came with like a little extra hand, and he came with some kind of plasma magic effects there. So that's pretty cool. There was a bunch of other accessories that came with the Todd McFarlane, but I'll let Chad tell you about those guys the next time I'm shooting an episode with him. Now, these last 2 items, they definitely fall into the category of things I didn't really need, because they don't fall into one of my collections. These are definitely kind of odds and ends. The kind of thing I like to buy, but I really need to rein it in, because I don't want to have holes in my G.I. Joe collection and stuff. So I'm going to have to keep buying all the G.I. Joes. So if something has to go, it has to be stuff like this. Now, I saw these figures, well, when they first went up for pre-order ages ago, I wanted to buy them, but I resisted. But then a couple of weeks ago, I was in my local comic book shop, and they had these figures opened up out of their boxes in a glass display case, and they looked awesome. And I wanted to buy them so bad. I was humming and hawing. I asked the guy at the shop if he could open up the cabinet just so I could feel it. And I'm like, okay, he's got a good weight to him. He doesn't feel cheap or anything. Like, these are really, really cool, but they were kind of expensive. And so I resisted. But man, it hurt. And I came back to the car where my wife was waiting for me. And she's like, did you get your comic books? And I said, yeah, I got them. She's like, "What? You look sad. What's going on?" I'm like, "Man, they had these really cool toys in there." And I just, I resisted. She's like, "Oh, good. I'm proud of you. You have to resist every once in a while." So she gave me a little pat on the back, and I went home, and I just like, Anyway, a couple of weeks later, it was our wedding anniversary, and 5 years. So anyway, awesome. It's been a great 5 years. So she gifted me these toys. I was not expecting it. And yeah, they're super cool. Now, to preface this a little bit, I am not really a Simpsons fan. I don't not like The Simpsons. I just don't really keep up with The Simpsons. I don't know when the last time I watched a Simpsons episode was. Years ago, if not a decade or more. The Simpsons came out when I was in like grade 6 or 7, I think. And it was so long ago that I remember it was like kind of controversial when it came out. My mom didn't want me to watch it. They didn't even swear or anything. Like Bart Simpson would say, "Don't have a cow, man," and you eat my shorts. And that was considered kind of like, ooh, you can't say that on TV. So yeah, I felt kind of like I would have to sneak and watch The Simpsons. So I was a fan when it first came out, and I watched it for the first several years. But then after a while, I just kind of fell off from it and whatever. But I do have a fondness for those characters. I have very little Simpsons merchandise in my collection. I have a couple of little figures I've got over here. Whoop. So yeah, I've got Homer and Carl, is it? From the Playmates line. So this was the original toy line for The Simpsons. So these guys are about 5 inches tall or so. They're not really articulated very much. Their arms move and their heads turn, but like they don't have any articulation on the legs. So they can't kick forward or anything like that. Anyway, this was a pretty cool line of toys. They had a bunch of play sets, so you could get the living room and you could get Moe's Tavern and all that sort of stuff. And they all had little chips in their feet. So depending on what play set you put the figures in, Homer would say different things. So if he was at home and you put him on there, he would talk in Homer's voice and he'd say like, "Hey Marge, what's for supper?" Or probably something funnier than that. And if he was in Moe's, he would say, "Hey Moe, give me a beer." And so that was a cool little gimmick. But again, I just wasn't really into The Simpsons, so I never collected this line. I picked up a couple odds and ends over the years. And another company made some figures based on all the celebrities that have appeared in the show. So I have a couple of those at random. I have Bret the Hitman Hart as a Simpsons. I have the band REM as Simpsons. And I have Elvis Costello as a Simpson. So yeah, those are all the Simpsons things that I have in my collection. So, not a big Simpsons guy. But in the last couple of years, Super 7, they picked up the Simpsons license. And they started doing some Simpsons reaction figures, which is the small little 3 3/4 inch figures, and they did some pretty cool ones. And then they also started a line of Ultimates. Now, Super 7's Ultimates line, I do collect quite a few of those. I buy their Thundercats, their He-Man, their Godzillas, their Ninja Turtles. So they do all kinds of different licenses under the Ultimates banner. And they're all relatively in the same size, like 7 inches or so. Some of the bigger characters are a little bit bigger. But yeah, they're really cool. They started doing the Simpsons line. And zero interest in getting any of these Ultimate Simpsons. They looked cool, but they were really expensive. Some of the characters they did Poochie, they did Robot, Itchy, and Scratchy. They were all kind of like the characters you would not have expected. They never did a Marge. They never did a Lisa. The only Homer, they did Homer as an astronaut and Homer in his moo-moo. The only Bart they did was Bartman. So I think they thought they would have this license for many, many years and they could get to those characters eventually. But they wanted to kind of start things off with doing some more obscure, fan favorite characters like Hank Scorpio. But unfortunately, they recently lost the license to do Simpsons. So I think they put out 4, maybe 5 waves of Ultimates, and that's it. So that's kind of a bummer for people that started collecting it because it's kind of a really random mishmash of characters. But anyway, of all those characters, I feel like Itchy and Scratchy, for example, would be characters I could buy. I wouldn't need the Simpsons. They would just be cool on their own because they're kind of their own standalone thing. And that's the category these guys fit into. So these, to give you an idea of how big they are, this is the box that they came in. This thing is like as big as my head. It's huge. And so as you can see, I've got Kang and Kodos. So this is the Kodos box, although I might have mixed up the sleeves. I don't remember. So anyway, so you get the Simpsons, the clouds on the box there, and then you slide the sleeve off. And it's got one image on another image on the inside. Anyway, there you go. It's very cool. And the figure was tucked away nicely in there. So I've got 2 of these bad boys here. Yeah. Very cool. Was not expecting it. Like I said, I had made peace with the fact that I wasn't going to get these figures. But as soon as I saw them, I thought, like, I'm probably going to be kicking myself years down the road. Because these things are so cool. Even people that aren't Simpsons fans, like myself, will probably want to buy these. And knowing that Super 7 lost the license, they wouldn't be able to, like, reproduce these. So even if they sold really well, they couldn't say, oh, let's go back and make more. Because, like, what they had was what we're going to get. So I thought, man, I bet these things are going to be hundreds of dollars, a couple of years down the road. So it was a huge relief when my wife showed up with these things on our anniversary. So I don't remember which one's which necessarily, but here is one of them. And here is the other. Now, I really don't want to drop these guys, but yeah, they're really cool. So, and they came with a lot of stuff too. So the Ultimates figures are kind of known to have the ultimate amount of accessories. And yeah, these guys did come with quite a lot. So yeah, these guys here, this glass dome is removable. So you can take that off. And then they actually came with a whole other alternate head, which lots of Ultimate figures come with an extra head, which isn't, so that's not so strange, but this entire figure is practically the head. So you're almost getting like a whole nother figure in here. So you're like, there you go. That's another optional head. And you can just pop this off like so and place the new one on, kind of twist it into place. And there you go. Now, I was going to mention this. You might have already noticed, but the eyeball, it's articulated. So you can move it around. You can look up and down and side to side. So that's very cool. That kind of gives you like different display options too. Now, he doesn't have a ton of articulation otherwise. Like the tentacles, you can see there's a couple joints on there. So you can move them around, but not much. This one in the back that kind of anchors them, that doesn't move at all. These little ones move slightly. And yeah, then these ones have a couple of joints on them. So yeah, pretty cool, pretty cool. So yeah, that's one of the alternate heads. So you saw before, I had both characters with the kind of closed mouth. These heads, I don't know if they're identical, but they're not identical, but they're pretty close. This head and the other head. But then I have this one here, the open mouth. And then there's also an open mouth with a closed eye. So that's cool for displaying like certain scenes, but I don't think I'm going to display anybody with the closed eye. But speaking of displaying these things, I'm probably going to put them in a glass case or on a shelf somewhere. And normally when I get extra heads with a character, they go into my spare parts bin. It seems a real shame to put these in a spare parts bin. I kind of want to just display them on the shelf next to them because it's such a big, elaborate accessory. It crosses over into being a figure itself rather than an accessory. But yeah, very, very cool. Love it. Now, as far as accessories go, so they do have a bunch of other tentacle options. So this one here, you see I've got him holding a fork and a knife. Now, you can't remove the fork and the knife. Those are sculpted into the tentacles. But there are tentacles that don't have any accessories in them. So you can put those tentacles in there. So I've got a couple of those. Here's another tentacle. So this, you can't remove this accessory, so that's held in there. But how to cook for 40 humans. Which, if you remember, I think it might have been the first episode these guys ever appeared in. They always showed up in the Halloween episodes, the Treehouse of Horrors. And there was one of them where the aliens showed up and brought the Simpsons onto their spaceship. And I think it was Lisa that found the book. And it said how to cook humans. But then he moved his tentacle and said how to cook for 40 humans. So he's like, it's a mistake. I wasn't cooking you. I was cooking for you. And we're like, So anyway, yeah, that's cool. And then there's also another tentacle here with a salt shaker. Again, these are all scene specific right out of the show. Then there is this tentacle with a little cloche. I believe that's what it's called. And this here, you pop that off. So I don't know what you could really put in there, but anyway, it's cool that it opens up. Then there also is a tentacle here that's got a little peg on it. And the peg plugs into the ray gun there. So that helps them hold on to the ray gun. So you have that option. You can see with my other guy here, I've got him displayed with the ray gun. So he's already holding on to that. And also a scene-specific accessory is an episode where I believe they're hitchhiking. That might be from the episode where they take over Bill Clinton and Bob Dole. Just to give you an idea of how long these characters have been around. I think The Simpsons has been on for 35 years. So yeah, during the election with Clinton and Dole, there was an episode where they took over their bodies and they were hitchhiking to the Capitol and they had this sign, I believe. So that's cool. And lastly, here is baby Maggie as an alien with the tentacles. And so her head turns, I believe. That's about it. But, this is a figure, in and of itself as well. So, yes, these sets were very expensive. But I think they're worth it. Like, they are really big. Even compared to other Ultimates figures that I have, like my Ninja Turtles and my Thundercats and stuff. These guys look much larger than them on the shelf. They take up a lot more shelf space. So, yeah, I think they're awesome. So hopefully you guys were able to get a good look at them. Normally I would, do some close-ups. I would flip the camera around and I'd shoot these right on my desk. But I think these are big enough that you really get an impression of what they look like right here. So I don't think I need to do any close-ups. But yeah, just very, very cool. Much appreciated that my wife got these for me. She always comes through with really cool gifts. But yeah, this one was a surprise. All right. So I think that's everything. I guess I can wrap this one up. Hopefully I'm feeling better in the next couple of days, and me and Chad can get together for another episode, and we can maybe talk about some of these new G.I. Joes that we have. So stay tuned for that. I will see you next time. Ciao.